Welcome to Branding Room Only, the podcast where your personal brand gets a front row seat. I'm Paula Edgar, and if you're here, it's because you know your brand isn't just about what you do. It's about how people experience you. In each episode, you'll hear stories, strategies, and lessons from leaders and influencers who built their brands and made their mark. And I'll share the tools you need to do the same. Let's go. Hey, y'all. This episode of Branding Room Only, my guest is so inspiring. Robert Gray, President of Leadership Council on Legal Diversity, also known as LCLD. He shares his remarkable journey through the legal profession, his insights on building a personal brand, and the crucial role of diversity in today's society. I really love this conversation. Robert's story has so many valuable lessons and motivation. You don't want to miss this. So I can't wait to hear what you say and think about this episode. So stay tuned. Hi, everybody. It's Paula Edgar, your host of Branding Room Only. Super excited to be with my guest today, who is Robert Gray, President of the Leadership Council on Legal Diversity. Robert is a phenom. He's also had a distinguished career in representing business in administrative, regulatory, and legislative matters, and has made significant contributions to the legal profession, including serving as president of the ABA, American Bar Association, and being appointed to the board of the Legal Services Corporation by President Obama, and so many other things that we are going to get into shortly. Robert, welcome to the Branding Room.
It was my pleasure, Paula. Glad to be here.
Good. All right, well, let's get started. So,
All right.
What is a personal brand? How do you define a personal brand?
I think a personal brand is the accumulation of your style over the years of your life professionally. So I think a brand is not static. I see it as always evolving. And I think when people think about a brand, they think static. And that's not from a personal perspective. I don't think that's exactly the best thing to do. So as you evolve, so does your brand. But I think there's certain aspects that have to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. I think you have to be authentic. Mm-hmm. If you're not authentic, then your brand is not either. Yep. I think that people have to trust you. Trust is a component of building a brand. And if we know about the iconic brands in the marketplace, it's really based on the trust people have for that product. Mm-hmm. And then I think the final thing to brand is your standards for excellence, for respect, mm-hmm. and for achievement. Mm-hmm. And when you assemble that, you recognize that you can't get respect until you give respect. Mm-hmm. If you're not trying to be the best, then you won't be the best. that much is true. That's sort of like if you're putting and it don't get to the hole, it ain't going in.
that part. I think that was a textbook, like exactly what I would put into what a brand is. Almost as if I fed you the answer, but I didn't, which is even better.
Well, to be honest with you, a lot of this is what you said and at our meeting, and it resonated with me very much. So thank you for that.
I'm glad. For those of you who are listening who may not know, so I have had the opportunity, the pleasure to speak for the LCLD Fellows for the past 2 years, and it's one of my favorite events of the year. They are a fabulous group of folks, and it's just a wonderful opportunity to really talk to them about knowing what their brand is and then catalyzing them to go out and continue to iterate it.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, Don, tell me about your brand, Robert. Describe yourself in 3 words or short phrases.
That's really hard. The one thing I got to tell you that has always been hard for me in my life is to be a self-promoter. But I think that's an important part of who you are and being able to brand yourself. Mm-hmm. I think I am a visionary. Mm-hmm. Is the first thing that comes to mind. Mm-hmm. And a short second to that is creativity. I like to be creative. I think that brands usually distinguish you from other people. And
Mhm.
so it's my vision. I like to see and think big picture, but I like to be out of the box. I don't want to be constrained, so creativity is important. And then I think the last piece of that is, what are you doing to infuse the next generation with the idea that at some point it's your turn?
Mhm.
And if we haven't had a discussion beforehand, then the handoff is not going to be as smooth.
Mhm. Mhm. I think that that's perfect. Even though you didn't prep for it, I think that was perfect. And point of privilege, since I'm the host, I'm going to say that I think that a word that I think of when I think of you is impactful,
Well,
right?
thank you.
So
Thank you.
yes, thank you for being impactful. All right. Do you have a favorite quote or mantra?
I'm going to tell you what my father told me.
Okay.
He said, "You don't get a second chance to make a first impression."
Mm-hmm.
And so, and he was career Army.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knows I did not serve in the armed services, but I want you to know I did 20 years. My father had me so regimented, I didn't know what to do. But it was purposeful, and
Mhm.
it has helped me
Mhm.
throughout my life.
Mhm.
And so the Valentine Museum in Richmond asked for artifacts from different people who have lived in the city as a way of collecting their belongings
Mhm.
for the long haul, for the
Okay.
historical purposes.
Uh-huh.
So they asked me to give them a suit that I had worn. They said,
Uh-huh.
we like the way you dress, so, send us one of your suits. And so I sent them a suit that they put in a showcase at the museum. And
Really?
they said, give us a quote. And
Okay.
the quote was from my dad: "You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. Be on your game."
That, I mean, how perfect when you're thinking about branding. Because I often
And
say,
that's the truth.
but you know, how you show up, right, is a part of it as
Yeah,
well as what you got behind it. But yes, I'm a big believer in that you should always be prepared for whatever you might experience. And that includes what your uniform is for the day, whether it's a
that's
suit
right.
or a suit.
That's right.
Yeah. Love
And
that.
you can, and I think the other thing is you bring it every time you show up,
Mhm.
and your first impression is dramatic and for intentionally,
Mhm.
and that's what it takes. Being conscious and recognize that if you don't believe in yourself,
Mhm.
guess what? Nobody else is either.
Absolutely. You want to be purposefully memorable, right?
I
So
like that.
that,
I like it.
thank you.
I
Trademark.
like that.
Okay. What about a hype song? So for me, I define it this way. When they're going to get the full Robert Gray experience, what song is playing in your head when you're walking in a room? Or if you're having a bad day and you need to be picked up, what song are you going to play? And it could be the same song or different songs. Which type?
Sade,
Oh,
cool operator.
smooth.
Smooth, I'm sorry, smooth
I
operator.
got you. I'm
I'm
like,
thinking, I'm
I'm with you.
thinking,
I'm
I'm
with you. I'm with
thinking
you.
cool and say smooth.
That's because you are
Smooth.
cool. But that's a good one. That's a good one. And I think you might be the first person who's selected Sade. So the soundtrack is going to be magnificent for the podcast. That is awesome. That's a good one. My husband's a big Sade fan.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes, so probably the I've dragged him to a bunch of concerts, but that was the one where he dragged me. I was like, I like her, but no, he was like, we're going to see this, and it was fantastic. All right. So you mentioned Richmond. I don't know a lot about where you grew up. Is that where you grew up?
It is.
Tell me about how you grew up and how that impacted your brand.
Substantially. As I told you, my dad was career military. My mother was one of the most innovative educators in the country, having started model schools in elementary model schools in
Oh,
Richmond. She turned 98 April 10th, and she still works.
wow.
She is employed by her alma mater, Virginia Union University,
Oh,
as the program director of their museum that she started.
wow.
So and so I've got a dad who he actually had two careers. He was military for 20 years, retired, and then went to college. Graduated, became president of the Richmond Urban League, and then an executive with the A.H. Robbins Company, which is a pharmaceutical company that made Robitussin
Mm-hmm.
and Chapstick, and was the highest ranking African American in that organization at the time. I grew up around the corner from Doug Wilder, who was the first African American governor elected in the country. And I grew up down the street from Oliver Hill, who graduated number 2 in his class at Howard University Law School.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Mr. Hill, you were number 2. Who was number 1? Thurgood Marshall. So I saw you talk about my environment. It
Right.
very much shaped me.
Clearly. Wow. Did you have siblings?
I have a brother. I have a younger brother
Mhm.
by 10 years. So I'm more like a surrogate father than an older brother. Because he
As an
got
older
kicked out of
sister.
the house and had to live with me for a while. So,
As
you
an
know how
older
that
sister,
goes.
I get that. Trust me.
Oh, yeah.
That first kid thing. So tell me about when you decided to go off to school and what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, so everything for me was a first, and somebody's got to be first. So it might as well be you. But going to public school in a segregated environment up until middle school, and then going to an integrated environment from middle school to high school.
Mm.
But integrated back then was like maybe 30 people in the whole school. So it was still small
Wow.
group of people. And the same was true with everything else I did. I think I'm the 4th Black graduate from the Washington and Lee Law School.
Mm-hmm.
I was the first, African American president of the Young Lawyers Conference of the Virginia State Bar.
Wow.
I was the first chairman of the Chamber of Commerce of Central Richmond, first president of the partnership, the first officer of the American Bar Association when I was elected chair, second African American president. So for me, it was about cutting the trail as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to seeing how the trail was cut.
Yes.
But the beauty of it all was it caused me to grow up
Mm-hmm.
and take responsibility
Mm-hmm.
and say, if you don't make this happen, it's not going to happen. So get out there and work your butt off and do the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get the job I wanted when I moved back to Richmond. So I pondered for a while, what the heck do I do? And that's when I went back to my alma mater, which was Virginia Commonwealth University. I talked to the chairman of the business school where I graduated, who happened to be a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, listen, we would love to have you teach full time at the university
Mm-hmm.
till you figure out what you want to do. We love you here. So I said, well, good, because I ain't got a job, so that's a good idea. And so I taught at VCU
Mm-hmm.
when I was 28 years old, and I was 23 when I graduated. So 5 years later, I'm teaching, and I've got an office next to the people who taught me undergrad. I taught business law,
Mm-hmm.
and during the day, I started my own law firm. If I can't get a job, I might as well hang out my own shingle, which I did,
Mm-hmm.
and did lots of different. I was a general practitioner. I did lots of criminal work as court-appointed public defender position.
Mm-hmm.
This other lawyer taught me real estate, so I created a real estate practice and I went to all the Black realtors in town. And I said, "Hey, I am going to come in on Saturdays and give y'all all the legal advice you can handle."
Oh,
And in exchange, I hope you'll come see me with your clients, with
look
your,
at that. I love that strategy. Okay.
and it worked. It
Mhm.
worked. I was doing more closings than I had to hire a paralegal to help me
Right.
do this. But you know, that's the part I kind of like about life is
Mhm.
that if it's not clear to you exactly what to do,
Mhm.
then you clear it by creating the environment you think you want to be a part of.
Mhm. Mhm.
And interestingly enough, I got appointed by the governor to be the first African American to head the Alcohol Beverage Control Board for the state of
Mhm.
Virginia. And in Virginia, you know, it's a revenue producing agency because all the liquor is sold through state stores.
Mhm.
So I had 1,500 employees, 136 outlets, transportation, warehousing, you know, very engaged with the legislature,
Mhm.
knowing the power players in the government. And at the end of the day, I had a big legislative battle with the biggest law firms in the state. And I got to tell you, I was beating the crap out of them. I really was until the governor pulled the plug and they got to him. But the result of that, Paula, like you said, is because I put myself out there, now they want me in the firm. And they
Mhm.
want me when they didn't know me, but now they know me. And so, oh, yeah, we want you in the firm.
Mhm.
And the rest is history. I mean, you know, I just sort of progressed along the way,
Mhm.
doing different things. But the bulk of my career was being a lobbyist and representing companies before administrative agencies
Mhm.
for regulatory purposes, and doing a lot of what I would call pro bono work. I mean, you know, you just when you're a Black lawyer, you volunteer a lot.
I know this to be true. I know this to
I was
be
president of the Richmond Crusade for Voters, which was a Black voting, is a Black political organization
true.
started by Oliver Hill and some of those folks
Mhm.
at that time. And it was about get out the vote.
Mhm.
And I was running that for the city that I lived in
Mhm.
and did it during the time that Doug Wilder was running for governor. So, you know, it was a big deal and everybody was, you know, engaged. And then in 2008, I ran for mayor of Richmond.
Wow.
And my good friend, Dwight Jones, who's a Baptist minister, beat my butt. And so that led to LCLD.
Well, let's pause before we jump into LCLD. Tell me what you learned about yourself from not winning that race.
That's a very, very good question. You are not as important as you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
The only people make you important are other people who
Mm-hmm.
think you are. You can think you're important all you want to, but if they don't, it don't count. It's humbling. It was a humbling experience.
I feel like, especially because at that point you had already been president of AB, you'd already done, you'd already been out there, right?
I
So
thought I was
humbling.
a pretty bad dude.
Well, clearly you are. That is just that aside, of course you are. But I like to pull out what failing or not accomplishing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
What it does,
yeah.
because so often people think that your career or your brand is a straight line, and it's from what you say it's going to be, and it's hills and valleys and roads and pivots and divots and all these things. And I think it's encouraging to folks to hear that the people who they look up to and who have done all these things have also had times when it didn't go the way that they thought it was going to go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was a humbling experience.
Mm-hmm.
It also put me in touch with my community in a
Mm-hmm.
way that I hadn't been before.
Mm-hmm.
And that being in touch is important to understand people's point of view when they talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't live everybody's life or the
Mm-hmm.
way they live it.
Mm-hmm.
But you learn a lot by visiting people where they live. And when you're running for office, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And so you just have I had a much different feel for the city after that, and the concerns that people had. And I realized I like being engaged in political activity and seeing the results of it. But you don't have to be a candidate to do that all the time.
Yep.
And that just wasn't my thing. And I needed to know that. I needed to realize that. And now I'm at peace with that idea. I don't need to prove anything to myself or anybody else from that standpoint. But I still want to be engaged, and that's why I continue to do things like Legal Services Corporation, because there's more to life than just your professional career. And giving back is more important than what you receive.
Yes, yes. And I think, a part of, regardless of where the diaspora you're from, anytime I've spoken to anybody Black, there's the ancestral need to do because things have been done for, and to lay the foundation for other folks to have the ability to do it as well. So I hear that. So let's talk about LCLD. So what is it? Why is it important? And what is your focus, your vision as its leader?
We should start with the vision that was LCLD, and that is attributed to Rick Palmore, who's the retired general counsel of General Mills. His idea was we can do better. People are doing what they do, but we can do better. And that's what captivated me, is this idea, what can we do that's better? And the thing that we recognized is something we didn't have, and that was a powerful network of people who cared about us. And the question is, how do we create that network where not only people care about each other, but they care about you being successful just as much as I want to be successful. I care about you being successful. The question is, how do you invest in other people? How do you do it? And we wanted to create a platform, an environment, and a community where not only are we trying to get better and be the best that we can at what we do, but we want to do that with people who we care about and who care about us. And if we can build that community, then that community will take care of itself because everybody in it has the same mission and focus. It is what the majority community always had, was this network, and they took care of each other. It's okay. But we should be able to do the same thing.
Yep.
And so what you see every time you come is the expansion of that network and the development of those relationships. The other thing another very important part about this is you can't do it on a weekend. You can't hold a conference, have a weekend and say, okay, we're good for the year. No, you're not. You're not even good for the next day.
Right.
So our programs last over the course of the year so that people can invest in others and build those relationships that then establish a cohesive and sustainable network.
So I speak, thankfully, everybody keep hiring me, at a lot of conferences, and for a lot of organizations. And I had always heard about LCLD. I knew a lot of LCLD fellows and folks who are pathfinders and folks in D&I space. But there is nothing that can describe the actual experience of being amongst folks who are, to your point, everybody's special. Put that to the side. They are special. And they are investing in each other's specialness. And they're taking that that charge to then go out and say, we're going to use this connection to do better in the world.
Yeah.
And it's really I had a chance to meet you several times, but this last time I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have him on the podcast because you spoke about that. You spoke about how if everything that they get stays in the room, then they have failed.
Doesn't
That
work.
it's gotta be that you go out and do more. And I'm on a foundation board. And one of the ways we give money is we say it has to be that whenever we give money, that has to be a multiplier. It has to be that thing is going to multiply. And LCLD is a multiplier. It's a
It is. You captured one of the key phrases is we want it to be a multiplier effect. Yeah, you're right.
It is exactly that, because you always know. I know before I even talk to people, I'm like, oh, that's a fellow. That's a fellow. I know because they show up differently. Because, I mean, and to be frank about your team, there's so much thought that goes into what their experience is going to be. It's why I love it. It's why I stay for the whole conference. Sometimes I speak at conference, I'm like, okay, I gotta go. But I'm like, no, I got to stay because I get as much out of it as I also give into it.
That's good.
So I think that it's powerful. One of the other things about LCLD that I want to make sure that folks know, it's not just the participants, but you're also bringing together the change agents, the leaders, the folks who are making decisions to talk about what is going on in the world, in their worlds, and what we expect from their investment into the people who they've put into the program. And I think that that is another piece that makes this very different, especially now, especially with what's happening with diversity and inclusion now. So I wanted to give you some space to talk about what your thoughts are about the state of diversity in our profession, generally in this country. Now, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know how I feel about this. The diversity train has left the station. We are not going to be a less diverse society. So that's done. Question is, what kind of society do we have as a result of that? And my sense is there will always be obstacles for us in this country. It is just ingrained in the psyche of this country because we started out as subhuman. And so you don't just get human overnight. When people don't think you even belong to the race of human beings, you got to, so, we will always have that as a challenge. But it's like everything else, everything has a season. So, it might be your season this time. But let me tell you something. The train has left the station and it's motoring down the tracks, and you can throw some gunk on the track and slow it down. I'll give you that. But you ain't stopping the train. I mean, that's just, we should never accept the fact that Jim Crow or Ku Klux Klan, any of that stuff was ever going to stop us from gaining our freedom. It wasn't. It was just a matter of time. The diversity in our society is such a heavy burden on all of us when we try to undermine it. And I think what happens as people continue to try to do that is that every generation is less impacted by those who would stand in the way. When I talk so after the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action, I called about 120 of my members. I said, he said, why are you calling? I said, I'm taking your temperature. I don't know what you're thinking. How you feeling? Tell me what's up. And what I got was, you know what? It kind of pissed me off more than it did anything. I think what are we going to do? And so I think this generation of general counsel are not afraid of diversity. They're in their 40s, 50s. It's just not a thing to them. like it was to my generation.
Mhm.
And so there's less angst about trying to do diversity.
Mhm.
Now, did some people sort of use that as an exit strategy? Yeah, they did. And you're going to have that.
Mhm.
You know, just like they used George Floyd as an entry
Yeah.
strategy, they used FFA as an exit strategy. And
So
it was
true.
like, what are y'all about? You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
but they're not going to be there on the
Mhm.
long haul. What we're looking for is people who are going to make the investment toward a more perfect union and toward a profession that reflects the population that it serves.
Mm. I mean, that period, close the envelope.
Yeah,
In a nutshell, a lot of law firms contacted me and were like, Paula, what are you hearing? What's going on? And I'm hearing, I'm a girl from Brooklyn, New York. I don't like bullying. We are bullies. We don't like to be bullied.
that's
we,
right.
and
We're the
so,
bullets.
right, exactly. I'm like, well, that's what we do here. And so I think of this as any other time a bully shows up, right? They will continue to bully you if you continue to back down. And so the more that folks realize that this is just a tactic and we have the exact tools that they have, they've got the law, so do we, to be able to use it to our benefit, to be able to say, and the people who actually care, you'll see that they continue to care. What I encourage folks to look out for is the folks who are showing that they don't,
Oh,
because
yeah.
people have choice. We can choose
That's
with our
true.
vote. We can choose with where we decide to work. We can choose with who we choose to engage in terms of business, and they will then learn that there are repercussions to when the decisions that you have made. And so, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. At the last LCLD fellow meeting, you spoke about this, and I again had that same thought. I was like, it's one thing to read all these headlines that are like this attack on diversity and backlash and diversity fatigue and all these things. It's like, no, we need to talk to people who are like clear-headed and like, this is not, we just got to keep on pushing. This is yes, a slowdown, but it's not a stop. And to your point, I
Not a
don't think
stop.
it can never stop. The society has moved such that even if we wanted to stop it, it couldn't stop.
You're
Somebody's
right.
going to be upset somewhere and going to want to do something differently and want their diversity to be acknowledged and to be included. So I'm glad I gave you some space to talk about that, because I think it's important for folks to hear it, particularly because you've seen a lot of the ups and downs that people are like, oh, well, how are we going to do it? You've seen a lot of it, right? And so there's that. So I'm going to come back and ask you this. Mentorship. Part of the LCLD ecosystem is really creating relationships where those things happen automatically. They happen as a part of the thought process. But who are the folks who mentored you, and who do you mentor?
Mentoring is not always one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, most of my mentoring was done by watching other leaders
Mm-hmm.
and saying that I like the way they handled that thing. I like the way they talked to that person. I like the tone that they used in that argument. Most of my mentoring was distant mentoring,
Mm-hmm.
from watching people who I felt represented my values, my expression, my methodology of being who I was,
Mm-hmm.
and I just sort of incorporated various parts of that into who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Mentoring is not can be very structured and
Mm-hmm.
therefore very good,
Mm-hmm.
but I am a perfect example of unstructured mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you realize that, then mentoring is a much broader concept
Mm-hmm.
than a one-on-one. I think peer mentoring is critical to the success of LCLD.
Absolutely.
You like leadership mentoring, where somebody with greater experience, greater knowledge is sharing that with you and saying, here's what I see in you that you don't see in yourself. That's the value of mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get that honesty, it's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't always get it.
True.
So you got to decide how you're going to get your mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders is one thing. It's you have less control over it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love
Peer
that.
mentoring,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, but peer mentoring, you have lots of control over
Mm-hmm.
because that's where you're investing in other people that will then turn around invest in you. And I had a deep reservoir for for investment purposes. And part of that is you got to give respect to get respect.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the first to try to help somebody because I figured that is how I'm going to get respect by them saying, yeah, brother didn't have to do that, but he stood up and stood in when it was maybe not his job, but he saw it as purposeful
Mm-hmm.
and necessary. And so that's sort of how I look at it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of how I experienced it.
I love that because often people will ask this question about, like, I'm looking for somebody to help guide me. How do I do it? Do I just go up to them and say, like, can you be my mentor? And I go, no, don't do that. but because to your point, that you can learn so much. I say all the time, Oprah Winfrey is one of my mentors.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
look
exactly what.
and see, and that is to take the things that you want to do and also the things that you would not necessarily want to do and shape how incorporate. It's such a big lesson also about your brand two ways. One, because you can gain other skills and perspective and seeing other people, but in remembering that we are being watched, right?
Yes,
That even if you are not interacting with others to speaking to brand, people are watching you and they're getting things from you and your experience and how you show up. So that's another reason to do it as well as you can. Right?
that's
And
exactly right.
yeah, and when you mess up, to be accountable for it, which is another piece that people don't necessarily get either. So I love that. Can we talk a little bit about when you were ABA president?
Yeah, that was a unique experience. I watched other ABA presidents before me and decided I was not going to do what everybody else did.
Mhm.
And everybody wanted to, I'm going to do this about that and this about this other thing and this about it, and I'm going to spread all. And I said, I'm going to pick a project.
Mhm.
I'm going to
Mhm.
pick a project and then I'm going to go for it. And I ended up talking to a lawyer
Mhm.
from a law firm in DC who was talking about bemoaning the fact that it's so hard to try a case in front of a jury. And this is sort of in the light of, remember the McDonald's case where she spilled some coffee
Yes.
and got $1 billion or something. It was
Yes.
like, and then all of a sudden, all these states started closing in on jury awards and putting
Mhm.
limits on them, what juries could take. And I said, you know what? When he made that observation to me, I sat back and I said to myself, that is the most integrated institution in our government is jury service.
Mhm.
It's in every town, county, city in the country.
Mhm.
What are we doing about it? How are we trying to make it better and preserve it? Because there are people who are attacking it, trying to tear it down. So I made better justice through better juries as my project. And somebody said, well, I need somebody who really is respected for their contributions to jury service. And I was given the name of Judith Kay, who was the chief judge of the Court of Appeals of New York. Called her, I went to see her. She said, absolutely, absolutely, I'll do this with you. And I'll chair the commission. And she said, but you need an honorary chair. You need someone whose gravitas
Mhm.
is greater than all of us. And I was looking like, I'm not sure we can get that guy, but okay. He said, I'm going to call Sandra Day O'Connor and ask her if she would do this. And I'm going to invite her to talk to you. And that means you'll have to go visit her. And I did. And I walked into her chambers and she said, Mr. President. And I said, Madam Justice. She said, I know why you're here. The answer is yes. What else would you like to talk about?
Wow.
Whoa. So Judith Kay was the chair of the commission. Sandra Day O'Connor was the honorary chair. And another woman who was the past chair of the litigation section of the ABA was in charge of the working group. Mm-hmm. I had 3 women in charge of the capstone program that I was putting together in the ABA. No guys. And every one of them showed up. Justice O'Connor called me and said, I've called the DC Superior Court. I'm going to go and panel the jury myself. I'd like for you to be there. Let's show them what we're talking about.
Wow. Right. you then show up because
wow. People took ownership. They said, we're going to do this. I'm going to tell you who was on my working group. He was the general counsel of Merck. Was Kim Frazier. Not when he was chairman or when he was general counsel.
Wow.
So that's how far back I go with it. Anyway, that was back in 2004.
Wow. So, I'm glad you just said when it was, because I know what I see it in your CV, but when you think about the longevity of the profession, and then when you hear people talking about first, and you've talked about a lot of firsts, and you realize some of those firsts were like a hop, skip, and a jump by. Not a long time ago for these firsts. And it's why it's so important for us to talk about what we have done and what still needs to be done. There's still so many firsts that are out here. I, didn't really learn, I think, enough about ABA when I was in law school. And it was actually, it was exactly. And it was an NBA person who was like, Paula, you have to be involved in the ABA. And I love it because number one, I'm in a lot of bar associations. I love bar. I'm a bar baby. I love lawyers. But there's something about seeing the literal engine. I'm on the House of Delegates, right? So to see when something is coming up and how we're going to talk about it and all those things, it's literally how we set the tone for what's going to come law-wise for the most part, or to say we don't like what has happened. And it is powerful. And this is not, the ABA is not sponsoring this, but they can if they like to. But that it's just, bar membership is so important. And for folks who are not lawyers, understanding what the bar is doing is also still important to lay folks as well. So I'm glad that we delved into that. You've done so many things. I want to ask you this before we get into closing. What legacy do you hope to leave in the legal profession?
The legacy, I think, is an attitude that I want to leave. It's not a project. It's not LCLD. It's an attitude. And the attitude is you have to believe in yourself. You have to have faith in yourself. You have to have a strong spiritual being to take it to the next level. Because the only thing that is certain is that if you don't try, you're not going to get there. And so my feeling is have an attitude that when it's all said and done, there won't nothing left on the table. I took it all. I tried it all. I tasted it all. I did everything I could, but I also wanted to make sure that I shared the experience, that it wasn't a gluttonous affair. It was a shared affair where everything I learned, I shared with as many people as I could, because I want them to have that attitude that if you can conceive of it and you can believe in it, then you ought to be able to achieve it.
I'm gonna take that. I take that. I receive that. I receive that in so many things, and I know that the folks who are listening will as well. So as we close, there are a couple questions that I ask everybody. One of them I'm really interested in hearing is, what do you do for fun?
Well, I collect art. I like collecting Black art particularly, but I like collecting art. And so I'm always sort of a good friend of mine is an art dealer. And that's not a good thing to have as a friend, because they bring you very expensive paintings. And they go, look what I'm selling. I go, well, how much does that cost? I said, well, I already bought a car. I don't need, how many of these things? But I thoroughly enjoy artistic expression, and to find out how we expressed ourselves through art is fascinating in the paintings that anyway. So paintings I like. The other thing I really have enjoyed is trying to keep myself physically in shape, and to learn how to play something that intuitively has no rhyme or reason. That's golf.
I was going to say it has to be golf.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense how you're supposed to swing the club and where it's supposed to go and all that. But to be outside, to be able to walk in such a beautifully manicured lawn, and be with friends, to share that. I mean, you're not playing against them. The only thing you're playing against is yourself. And so it's kind of up to you how good you are. And nobody's standing in your way, and so it's hard to explain when you don't do it. What happened?
You're talking to yourself in the mirror, like, what did you do?
Exactly.
I love that my grandfather was a golf caddy in Barbados.
Oh,
at Sandy Lane in Barbados.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, and so we often bring in golf type things, and I, as a part of the Bar Association, we chair every year a golf tournament, which is actually coming up. And I don't know how to play golf, but I do love how to wear a golf outfit. I can do that. I can do the outfit. I can pretend to play golf.
That's right. That's right. Well, let me tell you something. Everybody think, even people who think they can play golf, that's another humbling sport. I mean, it really is. I mean, you think you got it, and it's just, okay, I can do this. And you go back out and you go, where did I leave my life? Where did it go? I can't figure this out. Anyway, it's a lot of fun.
I love that. And I love the art piece as well. Have you had a chance to see the Harlem Renaissance at the museum, at the Met?
I have not, but I'm going to New York. I've got a couple of trips, and I'm going.
You call me when you're ready to go, because I love it.
Okay.
I studied museum anthropology in undergrad. And so, and that's the studying of how people go through museums.
Yeah.
And I love museums, and I got to go to the opening of the Met at the Harlem Renaissance. It was fantastic. It's excellent. The art is gorgeous. So when you come, give me a ring. I'm just going to be there.
I'm looking up, I think I've got about 6 photographs from Bandersee. Harlem Renaissance, right?
Yes.
And I've got one of Joe Louis and one of, I'm looking at, what's his name? Who was going to take us back to Africa?
Oh my gosh. Yes, him. I know.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
I know. I'm like, we both know who we're talking about.
Anyway.
Garvey.
Yeah. Exactly.
Woo. I'm so glad I
Wow,
got that.
glad you got
My
that
Jamaican
out.
my Jamaican
But
family would
that,
have
you know what? But that shows you how much we have to retain history.
Mhm. Yeah,
And I think the other thing, I'll tell you, let me close on this too.
sure.
We have to, we have to write the story
Mhm.
because the person that writes the story determines the history.
Mm.
And that's why that's why a lot of these books are getting eliminated and all that sort of stuff, because it's
Yeah,
telling the story.
yeah, yeah.
And we have to be persistent about that.
Mhm.
And the good thing is that libraries are not static anymore. You can take it out of the library. You can't take it out of circulation.
Yes,
And
thank God.
so all of this is really performance based. What are you doing? You can't eliminate the damn book. So why are you doing this? Because I am performing for my
Mhm.
constituents and whatever.
Yeah.
But
It,
I'm going to tell you, we are at a critical stage in this country. It's an inflection point.
Mhm.
And we either going backwards or we're going to go forward. But we definitely going one way or the other.
Yeah.
We ain't standing still because the forces that want to take us back are strong and they are vocal and they are exercising their will
Mhm.
politically, legally, and otherwise.
Mhm.
And unless we are firm in our commitment,
Mhm.
firm in our understanding that together we are the United States, but divided we are not. And we are vulnerable to many challenges if we don't stand tall.
Mhm.
But we're going to find out. We're going to find out pretty soon who we are. And once we do, I think some
Mhm.
of this will take care of itself. It'll be like, you took your best shot, now you better go on home because we about to take you out.
Yeah, yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
thing.
We have to go forward because we cannot go backwards. We have
We
to go
can't.
forward. Even
We
if it's a
can't.
little bit, we got to go forward. And so I take it to heart. I sit and think about what everybody can do in this space, and people ask this question all the time. I don't think that people have to do the same thing, but we have to do
Exactly.
something. We
You
have
have to do
to
something.
do something. And if anybody takes from this, and I know that you all will, is that we have to decide what our values are, what our priorities are, what our goals are, and then do something towards that.
And you know what? The other stuff is really important, but the last piece that you just said
Yeah.
is the only way you change
Mhm.
the course of history.
Yeah.
Because if the story you're writing is the past,
Mhm.
it won't work. You have to write about the present and what you're doing in it in order to affect the future. Yeah.
I usually end on two other questions, but I'm not going to do that. I want to end right there because I love that perfect point on that. Robert Gray, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I'm going to send everybody, let them know what LCLD is. I'm going to put all these links and everything so they can find out more about you and the work that you do. But just from me and then from all of my followers, I appreciate all the impact that you have had with your visionary leadership and your creativity and thinking out of the box. It is making us and the world a better place. And we thank you for it. Thank you for joining me today.
Paula, thank you. And thank you for all that you do and the beautiful person that you are and all the love you bring every time you show up. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right. See y'all.
Ciao.
Wasn't that an incredible conversation with Robert Gray? I feel filled with so many insights and inspiration, and reflecting on what our discussion was, it was so clear that Robert's journey through the legal profession and his dedication to diversity have profoundly shaped both his career as well as the lives of so many others. His experiences and perspectives remind me, and hopefully you, of the importance of building a personal brand that resonates with authenticity and purpose. So let's make sure we carry forward some of the lessons that we learned from leaders like Robert to create a more inclusive and supportive profession and world. If you'd like to learn more about LCLD and more about Robert and the work that they do, make sure you check out the link in the show notes. As always, thank you so much for tuning into Branding Room Only. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your network. Keep on building your brand and making a difference. See you soon. Bye, y'all. That's it for this episode. I appreciate you hanging out with me on Branding Room Only. Now, please do me a quick favor. Head over to ratethispodcast.com/branding so more people can join this conversation. And make sure to stop by paulaedgar.com/events to see what's next. Whether I'm live, online, or in person, I'd love to see you there. See you next time in the Branding Room. And until then, stand tall, shine bright, and always stand by your brand.